You saw what happened. The federal government of Nigeria, despite the fact that we have huge debt burden about 46 trillion, up from 12 trillion as of June 30th, 2015. New debt of 34 trillion naira. These guys are still borrowing. It shocks me that they went to the World Bank to borrow $800 million to shore up subsidy palliatives for 50 million poor households. Dr. Abati, these guys have not answered this question. In Nigeria today, we have over 130 million multidimensional poor people, based on the records at NDIC and the Central Bank. Out of the 112 million account holders in the banking industry, less than 0.6% have about 500,000 naira deposit accounts. And if you look at the multiple accounts by some of these high end, we discover that we have less than 400,000 Nigerians out of a population of 210 million that can boast of 500,000 naira savings. We have 182 million Nigerians based on the MBA and not earn more than 60,000 naira a day. And these are the situations that we have found ourselves. And somebody is proposing to borrow $800 million to shore up, to do subsidy palliative. If you run the numbers, so out of 133 million multidimensional people.
No, just a moment, doctor.
Yeah.
Government was very specific. That 800 million is for 50 million people.
I am coming.
10 million. But it's supposed to be first tranche of
So,
the package.
Dr. But let us do
it's not as if it's
let us do the numbers. $800 million. Even if you use the forex rate of 500 naira, which is above the official rate at the CBN, we're talking about 400 billion naira. If you divide 400 billion naira by 50 million Nigerians, we're talking about less than 8,000 naira. What would 8,000 naira palliative do to somebody in Nigeria if we remove subsidy and the price of PMS goes from 185 naira it is today to about 450, 500 naira?
No, I don't think the plan is to give the money, to distribute the money. They're talking about providing transportation, investing in agriculture. These are
Dr.
some of the details.
I am an investment banker. We've done numbers on this. We've actually done proposals to the federal government of Nigeria on how this can be done. Let me give you practical examples of what can be done. $800 million is nothing compared to the impact of subsidy removal. Dr. Abad, let me tell you what will happen. If you remove subsidies from day one, on an annual basis, we will save 7 trillion naira that are wasted every year on subsidy, based on the budgeted overheads. Dr. Abad, if we open up the downstream upstream oil and gas sector and put in place the right security architectures in place, we will be saving ourselves based on the records by NNPC. The NNPC GMB told us gleefully that we lose average of $1.9 billion every month on crude oil thefts, which can be protected if we put in place the right measures. If we put in place the right measures and we protect these assets and these resources that just ballooned over time, Dr. Abati will be saving between the subsidy savings, the savings from the theft, and the monies lost at the refineries. We'll be saving about 18 trillion naira annually. Nigeria is the only place where people go to borrow money without any checks and balances. One of the reasons why we are where we are this issue of lack of accountability and responsibility. Dr. Abati, we have borrowed over the last 7.5 years brand new debts of over 34 trillion naira. These are outside the 23 trillion naira that have been created at the CBN by way and means. These are outside 11.6 trillion that is by contractors' liabilities according to Fashola. If you add up these debts, we have brand new debts of almost about $200 billion. Dr. Abati, can we point out to projects, assets, infrastructure development that is tied to that are tied to these monies? So these guys that went to the World Bank, to the Bretton Woods, to demand that they should stop lending Nigeria, did the right things. In other developed economies or developed economies, you don't just go borrowing without first of all involving all the stakeholders, both the state actors and non-state actors. I say it with every sense of responsibilities. With 1.5 trillion hedged against receivables that may come with removal of subsidy, we will put in place enough palliative that will protect the poor without us going into this. Okay, how did they come about borrowing $800 million? What is the scientific framework upon which this $800 million will be applied? Dr. Abati, we did a study on what the impact of this would do. It's very simple. 1.5 trillion naira is what we need to be able to put enough palliative. And I'll give you specific if time permits me. In every local government area in Nigeria, we should be able to put at least 23 18-seater buses. 18-seater buses that can only be accessed by those who have their tax cards. That way you can even increase the tax nets, and those who cannot even pay. Able to put in place 4 articulated trucks and long buses in every local government area. 25,000 brand new buses. We are not going to be importing them. Those that will be bringing them to Nigeria must have assembly plants in Nigeria to do that. Dr. Bati, to fuel these buses, to maintain these buses, will create nothing less than new 800,000 jobs with the downstream oil and agri sector that we're talking about. They mentioned about that they want to invest in agri. Dr. Bati, to build mechanized agri outlets across the 8,809 electoral wards in Nigeria will cost about $1 billion. And that thing will help us within the next 1 year to be able to cultivate 3,500 new acres of upstream farm gates across the whole world at an average cost of 20,000 naira per acre. These things are scientifically derived. If these guys are sincere and they want to put in place palliative, there are proposals, private-public partnership proposals, to be spearheaded and driven with the Governors Forum, working with the presidency and the Nigeria Sovereign Wealth Authority. You will put this in place, Nigerians will see it clearly, NLC, everybody, all stakeholders, and they will give you thumb up to remove subsidy. Nigeria is a very massive country that we don't need to be afraid of ACTFA if we truly do the right things. We have made a case for Nigeria becoming a transshipment port. What is a transshipment port? Dr. Batlu, go to Singapore. Singapore is as small as Alimosho, but Singapore makes an average of about $20 to $25 billion from maritime and maritime-related activities. And the nearest port to Africa is Rotterdam. Nigeria has the potential, in Lagos alone, set up a transshipment hub that can make this place a base. If only we can introduce efficiency that will make Benin and Cotonou Port to become an adjunct of Nigeria. So most of the things that the World Bank has recommended are things that we don't even need anybody to recommend for us to do. On the agri sector, you can only diversify when you have the right enabling framework and security architecture. One of the greatest problems we have here is insecurity. And Dr. Abati, we have made cases for people, for the federal government to decentralize the security network in Nigeria. Between 1960 to 1966, we never had this kind of problem. The old Eastern Nigeria, Western Nigeria, Northern Nigeria had their own regional police. And we know that every security is indigenous. And I give an example with Anambra State. Before Peter became governor of Anambra, Anambra State was a den of robbers. Kidnapping was rife. In Onitsha, if you carry Potimba, they will cut off your hand. What did the guy do? He understood the psyche of the people. He went to each of the communities in the 177 autonomous communities in Anambra State. Give me 20 of your sons who you can trust to protect you. He provided them with training, gave them security guys and guns. And in 6 months, for 5 years, Anambra was the secure state, the most secure state in Nigeria. We can indigenize it. If we can indigenize security, decentralize it, and put security back to the communities, I tell you, once we can put in place the right security architecture, we can easily, you cannot diversify in an atmosphere of chaos.